And good evening and welcome to your view with me on Tabane. I hope you had a good weekend. Of course, the country, the world being gripped by fear of the coronavirus spread. You've seen various countries taking measures to secure their citizens. We saw the United States having multiple briefings. The president there also, strange as he sometimes comes across, but also being forced by the journalists there to be accountable, to talk to the country, and everybody truly taking some serious measures. Of course, you can call us. We're going to have an open line at the bottom of the hour on the corona situation. What do you think? What do you anticipate the president's going to announce whenever he announces it, either tonight or tomorrow? You can give us a ring on 010-594-5140. You can start calling us now. We'll take those calls at the bottom of the hour. Zianda Ngova, senior reporter who was out at the Union Building, camping there all day, will come and give us a sense of what she has picked up throughout the day and what we can anticipate will also be, navel-gazing in a sense, given what has happened out of the meetings with the business and the meetings with political parties. Just in linking to what is been happening around the world. Just take an example of Rwanda. Rwanda had only 17 cases so far. We are at 274, and it seems like we are, to put it mildly, still dilly-dallying about the issue of a shutdown. A lot of you discussing in various media, in various conversations, that it seems to me that the lockdown is an issue that needs to be decided sooner rather than later. Let's just take the issue of informal settlements. If what we are told and what we have seen in terms of the rapid rise, I mean, we were at 202 just on Friday and we're already at 274. This is a rapid rise in these infections, and we cannot behave business as usual. And one hopes that what will come out of that briefing with the president is nothing short of a lockdown. I'll tell you why. You saw on Saturday the business people out in Diepsloot giving out soap. Right? Now, if there's no water, to give soaps is just basically not to make any sense, because you've got to do both. Right? But no more than that, if we know that there's a time bomb waiting to happen for townships, it is clear to me that there needs to be a lot more action that is visible in terms of testing people, right? They must send out ambulances or these mobile clinics to stand around the entrance points of this informal settlement and test people so that we at least are proactive before a total lockdown is actually pronounced. And I think that a delay of a lockdown is not a good idea, because this is going to be an outburst of infection should one or two people in the informal settlement, where people live on top of each other, if that infection happens there, we are really going to be in deep trouble. We don't even have enough capacity in our health system to be able to actually get people to be quarantined in those large numbers. So if Rwanda can do it at 17 cases, can someone please tell me why South Africa has not pronounced a lockdown at 274 cases? In other words, or asked differently. And I know the politicians in these times don't want to be questioned, but unfortunately we got to question them nevertheless. What must happen first before there's a lockdown? And this is the question that someone must answer, and I look forward to the president addressing and answering what needs to happen first. At what numbers must we be? A lot of people out of Italy, some South Africans, some just friends of our country, are saying, let's learn from Italy, because Italy was not taking the matter seriously. People are in beaches, like we see in California, dancing in beaches and just, behaving like the Minister of Social Development, shopping and just being happy, and saying, oh, this virus must leave us alone. I think we need a lot more seriousness than that kind of prank. We need a lot of, especially from somebody who's supposed to deal with social development. Her hands will be full. Her hands will be full when elderly people, disabled people in these townships and informal settlements now can operate, can walk, can get themselves to hospital, can self-isolate. When you talk about self-isolate, you can hear this is just a middle class language. How do you self-isolate in a shack where you are sharing with 10 people? This must be a joke. You can't self-isolate if you have 10 other people breathing over you in a shack, man. So there's a need for an emergency intervention in informal settlements. Mark my words, we cannot afford that kind of looseness. That's the first thing. The second thing is the issue of economic intervention. Again, if you look at Italy, France, and the related, and I know these are first world countries, and that will be the first response. No, we can't compare us with first world. We can. We can, because if a 60 billion rand can be wasted by municipalities every year for the last 3 years, I think they can take that 60 billion rand and create a fund that will intervene decisively in economic terms. Not Standard Bank saying, yeah, if you have in good standing and you've got 20 million rand, then it means very little. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't want to be mean to Standard Bank, but frankly, to come and tell us that you're going to only intervene for those whose accounts are in good standing. And you are talking about people who have a turnover of 20 million. Who are you talking about? You're talking about a handful of people. It makes no difference, to millions of people who are just getting by. Those people who are just holding their livelihoods by a thread. You're not talking to those people. So I think the banking industry got to be serious. And I know that there are all these competition laws, and the competition commissioner must help us there. Maybe they need to sit in a room and coordinate a proper and pointed response. Don't tell me about somebody who's turning over 20 million. How many of those people are there? Tell me about a small business there that he wants to go and sell, small commodities at an open market, and they have a survivalist business, and they also have a loan with you. Are you going to suspend those car payments? Are you going to suspend the bond payments? Now you are talking. If you're talking that, you're talking seriously. And hopefully coming out of the meeting with the president and business, those are the sort of things South Africans want to hear. Because if you are able to suspend for a small business, that's not turning over 20 million. That's turning over 500,000 for that matter. Right? But the higher people who are all getting paid enough to sustain 4 or 5 family members, right? If you are able to suspend those kind of heavy payments, then they are able to keep people in employment and not rush to retrench and what have you. I mean, big companies already retrenched me. A friend of mine was talking here about airlines. I think it was actually Mark Lewis, that a friend of his who works for a big airline, got a letter just says, oh, tough, we're not flying. We're gonna pay you half. We're going to pay you 50% of your salary, right? And that's where now we need to see government acting decisively. And I want to commend the Minister of Small Business, who was talking to Kathy Mutlatlan on Thursday, that they've created now a R1 billion fund that small businesses can then appeal to. Their applications will be open on Tuesday. We'll be tracking that story for you. Of course, we always are nervous when there are all these funds, whether or not it's not going to be another excuse for corruption. But we hope we will suspend our cynicism for now and hope that R1 billion fund can assist small businesses that genuinely are in business, and by not having to be in the streets or trade, they are going to have to retrench people, and they should approach that fund, I want to imagine. And so that's a very clear and commendable step. The Reserve Bank, we must commend them, of course, for cutting rates by 100 basis points. I think in line with their conservative nature, I didn't even expect them to get to 1. I saw that the unions, through SAF2 in particular, were proposing 5% interest rate cut, which seems to be, for me, a lot more congruent with the crisis we are facing than tinkering with the interest rates in a manner that shows some kind of trepidation or fear, or even the indecisiveness that we are seeing. So 2 key interventions. The economic intervention has got to be serious. We've got to be able to say we've suspended some key loan payments for 3 to 4 months while we recover from a crisis. Social interventions, we cannot come and cry over spilled milk when people in informal settlements are affected and we have an epidemic could have stopped. So a lockdown is no longer a luxury out there, Mr. President. And I hope that when that command council comes to tell us what they are thinking about, at least we can be able to see some palpable stuff on the economy, some palpable stuff on the the social, the social front. It's important that all of us, of course, continue to play our role. We have seen the churches doing their best. I saw the Assemblies of God in Sandton, having people sitting 2 meters apart from each other, creating a 3-hour break between the services in order to sanitize, changing furniture, and so on. So it is clear that everyone sees that this thing has got to be taken seriously. And of course, churches that are meant to gather people and so on have got to be a lot more serious about taking this. I understand a church, St. John's Church, and I may have having it wrong, but a church in Soweto, had to have the minister, or rather the MEC of Health, issue, an interdict. They had to go to court to force them not to gather. We need to avoid that kind of thing. We expect that churches must take a lead. Talking about churches, can you believe that it is now some 4 months since the Premier of Gauteng, David Makura, who I have a lot of time for, by the way, has promised to relocate people who were victims of floods in Mamelodi. Reverend Gentile, who has put the resources of his church and his time and his effort on the line for the last 4 months, is pulling his hair. Is pulling his hair because now you've got a situation where there's actually more than 100 people in that church. The coronavirus situation can be the next crisis of those displaced people. And, we've got a government that claims to care. Yet it's 3 months. We're approaching Easter. They said people will be relocated by Christmas. We're fast approaching Easter, and those promises have not been kept. If that kind of conduct of what one can describe as inertia carries on in local government, in provincial governments, we are in deep trouble. We are in deep trouble, because all you need is one person who was traveling somewhere or who was infected, goes back into that church, and you are going to have a tragedy in your hands. And Reverend Gentile, and God bless him, the poor guy doesn't know what to do anymore, because every week there is a new promise. Oh, now the Premier said that they'll give you land. Next week they say, oh, there's a deadline. There's a chap here, a disastrous chap from disaster management, who was here saying, oh, on the 31st of January. And he looked like a very decent guy with a PhD and all. Promising that by this Friday, the 31st of January, everybody will be moved. We're approaching the 31st of March. We are approaching the 31st of March, and those people are still stuck in that church. That's why the municipality couldn't care. They have not had meetings for the rest of this year, and now they are being dissolved and so on. But can somebody just ask the question, what happens to the people? All these councillors and so on who can meet and what have you, these governments have been elected by the people, and they are letting them down in full public view. Everybody knows about that church in Mamelodi. It's supposed to embarrass government from the top to the bottom. These people are not easy to embarrass. They are not easy to embarrass. They don't think there's anything wrong. They just think, people are just shouting. They must stay there until we figure out what they're going to do. Now we've been overtaken by events, because now the real threat of all of them being sick from the virus has overtaken all the promises that were made to relocate them by Christmas, to relocate them by the 31st of January and so on. It's a bloody shame, actually. It's a bloody shame what is happening in this country. And unfortunately now, we have to look at the way government is managing the coronavirus virus through the eyes of this kind of ongoing incompetence. And then worry to say, hey, but we're going to incompetence, literally. We're going to be killed by the incompetence of some of these guys. So I hope that National Command Council, as it meets, it looks at some of these hotspots that are potential disasters waiting to happen. At the bottom of this hour, Zianda Ngobo, our senior political reporter, is going to be joining me to just analyze what's going on, to also look forward to what the president may or may not announce, and also give me a little bit of a reflection of meetings taking place today on the coronavirus. Stay tuned. Of course, you can also give us a ring if you want to join that conversation. So it's an open line. But we're also joined by Zianda to help me analyze the situation. At the top of the next hour, Professor Ndlechana also weighing in that conversation, as well as telling us about this new book, The Anatomy of the ANC in Power. Let's take a break now.